The Red War story arc needs to return in Destiny 2. With the final shape coming out in about a week from now, I thought it would be the best time to talk about the future of Destiny 2 and its current state at the moment. Now, as we're aware, there are episodes coming out post final shape, but I don't think these will ever address the major problems that Destiny 2 currently has with its story. I'm of course referencing the fact that there are certain stories in this game that are no longer in here because of the sunsetting. Because of that, a lot of new players don't know what's going on. See, when Final Shape arrives, you're going to have a new player join the game, do an intro mission that makes no sense, and then being thrown into the end of the story. So you can imagine it'll be quite confusing for them. So I think it's time that Bungie finally addresses this issue that we've been having. I'm sure we're all aware how bad the new light experience actually is right now. It provides no context for what's happening, for who the characters are and why we should care about them. And I think it's time Bungie starts to unvault some of this content that it shelved away nearly 4 or 5 years ago now. Now, in case any of you are new to Destiny or aren't aware, back in 2020, we had an expansion called Beyond Light. With that expansion, Bungie made the decision to sunset or remove a lot of content that was already in the game. This includes the vanilla storyline and the first 3 expansions that came with Destiny 2, although only one of those expansions actually matter. This also took away a lot of the loot, locations, weapons, raids, and etc. And it was a whole thing. Now, while I do believe that Bungie made the right decision back then, as they weren't in a position where they could keep it in the game and keep the game in a stable condition with all the other expansions we've had since then, because remember we've had about 80 odd gigabytes of expansions, and they took out about 80 gigabytes when they did the sunsetting, so I think it has worked out in their favour, although it was a shitty thing to do. But regardless of that, I think it's time that they start unvaulting some of this stuff now that Destiny 2 is most likely going to go into some sort of maintenance mode. Either way, it's going to die down after Final Shape. I don't think there's going to be another annual expansion for a while, probably never, hopefully never, because I would rather just have some episodes, let Destiny simmer down for a bit, and then go into Destiny 3, in my opinion. But going off the topic a bit here. Now, why Red War? Why not Forsaken or the other expansions like Curse of Osiris? Well, as many vets would tell you, the launch of Destiny 2 was kind of a shit show. It was just a really bad time. I'm pretty sure Bungie even got close to shutting down because of how bad everything was going for them. While it was a bad time, I do think the Red War campaign, the story itself, was actually a pretty solid experience for both vets and new players, because it introduced a new villain to the game. It set everyone back down to a beginning level, and we had to rebuild ourselves. And you get the idea. It reintroduced everything to the player, regardless if you're new or old. It broke everything down and explained everything in some sort of way where you can understand it. Now compare that to what we currently have for the new light experience, which is we wake up in Russia after a night out, meet one of the worst characters in the entire Destiny franchise, and go on to fetch quests for the next, I think, hour or how long the quests are. Yeah, it's not a great experience. It provides no context, because then you are sent to the tower after all this, and you basically go around and visit a bunch of vendors that you have no fucking clue who they are or why they matter. Now, with the Red War on the other hand, you were introduced in the first mission to Ghaul, who steals your light, takes away all your gear, and essentially kicks you off a cliff as the intro, which is, you know, pretty fucking engaging. After escaping the city, you then meet Hawthorne, one of the vendors, who takes you to the farm, one of the public spaces we currently have in the game. And through there we slowly start building ourselves back up, and eventually we go through and we meet all of these characters. I don't think you have to bring back the entirety of the Red War expansion. I think you can pretty much nail it down to about 7 to 8 missions. These missions would be Homecoming, which is the intro mission, Due, second mission, which has us escaping the city. The mission also introduces us to Hawthorne, which usually takes us to the farm, but we can skip all that shit and just go straight to the next mission, which is the Spark, which is where we get a light back. Here's where you can actually, you know, kind of introduce to the player the supers, to the subclasses, and maybe even start introducing them to the build crafting. Now, it has been pointed out before that there is versions of this already in the current new light experience. However, they don't go into proper descriptions about each thing. And I think that's where Bungie could, you know, add some more text on the screen where you have to manually, you know, dismiss. So players are essentially forced to read it so they understand like what's what and that. During the Spark mission, you can also introduce them to a recommend build for each of their classes. You could all explain to them what the other supers are and where you can find them, so you can perhaps get one for completing each part of the story if you're a new player. Or maybe you could just rerun Spark again to get all 3 supers in one go, to save yourself some time. Whichever works best, I think. After that, you can add another intro mission to the exploration of the EDC, and the game starts explaining more stuff to you, such as lost sectors, sources, Devrim K, loot, glimmer as a currency. You know, get the drift. It starts explaining more stuff to you. This could also be where you start adding in the Red Legion cutscenes that we had. So again, provides more context for what the Red Legion are, what they're doing here, and what's going on in the story. Next part could be reuniting the Vanguard, which are the missions Hope, Loot, and Sacrilege. This is also where we get to understand who each member of the Vanguard are, so you get to meet Zavala and Titan, who we learn is the commander of the Vanguard. We go to Nessus, where we meet Cade. We then go to Io to meet Ikora. Player then has a better understanding of what's going on with the current story. After all the Vanguard missions are complete, you're introduced to a cutscene which goes over the Almighty scene. This then leads you into the next mission, 1AU, Destroy the Almighty, which, if I remember rightly, was like a really good mission overall. After that, of course, we have the final mission, which is Chosen, which is where us returning to the city and killing Ghaul. With that short and scuffed version of the story, newer players now have some context of who the characters are, who all the vendors are, how to play Destiny, basic idea of how the game works in terms of patrol missions, and etc. And from there you could probably build off with some more quest lines like going into Strike, going into the PvP, going to Gambit. You know, it's a better way of introducing the player to Destiny, because I do think Destiny is a good game overall. It's just heavily flawed by poor decisions that happened years ago now. That's pretty much my thoughts on how I would reintroduce the Red War into Destiny to replace the New Light experience. The idea is to make Destiny more newcomer friendly, because this game desperately needs fresh blood, especially now that Final Shape is more than likely going to be the point where a lot of us, you know, take off and abandon Destiny or leave Destiny for a very long break. But other than that, that's pretty much my thoughts on this issue. Give me your thoughts below. Do you agree that Red War should come back, or do you have a different idea? Comment below. Hope you all enjoyed the video, and peace.